one of the changes that we really got to talk about when we look at masculinity. And it was very interesting that one of our presenters, there was Basuda, reached out and said, Maria, are you sure the correct spelling is with the Linity, or we should say masculinity? And we will find out as we learn from our presenters um, why this topic is very important and why our conversations should be drawing or drawn from that when we talk of positive masculinities. What exactly do we mean? Um, is it just being a great man or a great boy? What is it that we mean when we talk of positive masculinity? Because it has everything and so much to do with what the outcome of the young boys who become men of tomorrow. So I think what we could do is, for the sake of time, we will go ahead and ask Chido to start because we were supposed to have Mr. Chris Otieno from Nairobi, Kenya. I am not sure what's holding him or what the situation is. We'll just have to reach out to Banja. But we want to once again to welcome you to day 13 of the 16 days of activism, where we discuss positive masculinities. And we're saying we're redefining strength, compassion, and equality from boys to men, where we will unpack nurturing healthy masculinities in youth. And we will have on a five-side chat just for a few. We'll discuss with our brothers where we are our sisters' brothers, and we'll take a snippet into the anthology, which I'm in the process of compiling, where men are seen as allies in the fight for gender equality. So, with us today, we'll bring on our first presenter, Chido Angeline Mongai Shembanga. I am honored to bring her on. And I want to say this too. I know she's one of our young youth ladies that we should I call her ladies, but she's also the director of Hope for Her Global. So we want to wish her the best in her exams because she's in the middle of exams. So Chido, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. And thank you more so for saying yes to the call. Because when you said you wanted to take part, I did not know what to expect. So I'm equally excited. We are yet to discover what you're going to unpack for us today. So you'll take a few minutes to introduce yourself, and then you can go on to your presentation.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having a good day thus far. I'm on data, so I'm going to not be able to do my video for today. So I hope that's fine. Am I audible?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. When I just to introduce myself, as everyone's heard, my name is Chido Angeline Wangai Shambanga. I like to use all my three names. They're all special and deserve a mention. And I'm the global youth leader for Hope for Her Global. So I'm really honored to be here, and it's been such a great opportunity to get to hear all the different people get to speak on these issues that don't only affect women but should affect everyone and we must all come together to figure out how to end gender based violence against women. And today I'm going to be talking about positive masculinity, but I've decided to go from talking about it from the negative and then get into explaining what we can do to get it to become positive. So, firstly, I'm just gonna go and define what toxic masculinity is. Some people may not be aware of what that is, so it's really important that we get to unpack it and everyone knows where what they could be doing wrong, the problems, and how best they can be more self-aware to figure out ways to change how they're moving towards different people and how it can be viewed as toxic. Toxic masculinity refers to a collection of offensive, harmful beliefs, tendencies, and behaviors rooted in traditional male roles but taken to an extreme. This idea of manliness perpetuates domination, homophobia, and aggression, and can be harmful to the mental health of all. It can also have serious social consequences, which is how it became known as toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity generally has three cores: toughness. Men should be physically strong, emotionally callous, and behaviorally aggressive. Anti femininity. Men should reject traditionally feminine behaviors such as showing emotion and accepting help. Power. Men should work towards obtaining power and status and thus gain the respect of others. And some of these things don't always manifest themselves as problems, but when taken to the extremes, you get to see how they then pop up and are really bad. The glorification of unhealthy habits is something I'm going to talk about now. Toxic masculinity glorifies unhealthy habits, deeming self care and medical attention only for women and discouraging men from seeing doctors. It also promotes that real men treat their bodies like machines, need little sleep, work out even when they're injured, and push themselves to their physical limits. Research indicates that strong conformity to masculine norms fosters risky behaviors such as heavy drinking, tobacco use, and poor diet. Men who exhibit toxic masculinity tend to view these choices as normal. There's also stigmatization of mental illness and healthcare. It also discourages men from getting help, treating depression, anxiety, substance use, and any other problems they have, deeming them as weaknesses. Toxic masculinity may also stress that it's inappropriate for men to talk about their feelings, avoiding conversations that about problems or emotions may increase feelings of isolation and loneliness. It may also reduce men's willingness to reach out and get help when they're experiencing a mental health issue. And given all these unhealthy habits that men have been programmed to believe, it makes them end up taking unhealthy, dangerous let outs to get their emotions out. And this is when we get into situations where certain people get to experience gender based violence against them based off of the different ways men choose to behave when they're going through various issues. There's common traits of toxic masculinity include unconditional physical toughness, showing physical aggression, being unwilling to show emotions, showing discriminations towards other people, practicing hyper independence, exhibiting sexual aggression or violence, exhibiting anti feminist behavior, being violent, being dominant, and having emotional insensitivity. And at times, men will perpetuate these behaviors under the guise that, oh, it's just what guys do. And some of this way of thinking is very dangerous to how these things end up affecting people in society. Sometimes you might not even know that you're exhibiting toxic masculinity. And here are a few examples of just how little things that happen in everyday life could be viewed as toxic. For example, when a boy in school doesn't act in traditionally masculine ways, and he's bullied by other boys in his class for being too feminine. When a boy cries and his father tells him to toughen up, or that men don't cry, or when women get called out of their names for dressing a certain way, when men tells his partner that they cannot wear something, they should dress this way, or they're not allowed to spend time with certain people and they have to be a certain way. When there's violence against people who are different in society or who have different beliefs from you, you end up exhibiting violence against these people just because they don't practice the same things you practice or believe in the same things that you believe in. When men is afraid to be emotionally vulnerable with his partner for fear of seeming weak, which some of these things lead to a lot of negative emotions piling up, which then leads to very negative behavior traits in men against the different people that they encounter in society. Impacts of toxic masculinity: mental health struggles, inability to form meaningful relationship, increased rates of suicide, and pressure to conform unrealistic standards. In a world where mental health is something that's not visible, sometimes it's hard to explain what it is that you're going through. It leads people to not being able to navigate those feelings and then causing them to do very harmful things to themselves. On society, toxic masculinity can increase gender inequality, normalization of violence, and suppressions of diverse gender expressions. We already live in a world where there's continued gaps in inequality, both financially, both in gender, gender pay parities, and just various forms of inequality. And when men have a mindset where they think that they can do certain things and it's deemed okay because it's just men, what men do, or when men can call women based off what they dress, because oh, it's just like a guy thing. A lot of these things continue to broaden the gap that we already have in society, taking us further from the goals that we're trying to reach to end some of the issues that are faced constantly by women and girls. And it takes us lot longer to get to spaces where some of these issues are no longer issues, where we've come together, worked together to eliminate a lot of these problems. Because sometimes it feels like there's a lot of work that we need to do. But when you just take a moment to really think about the some things that we can do, you realize it's really small steps of collaboration that will help us get into spaces where we can stop certain things. Because if we raise our young boys telling them the right way to be respectful towards one another, to be respectful towards women, it takes a big step into getting us where we want to get. Because some of these things are learned behavior, some of these things are taught behavior. People don't just grow up and practicing toxic masculinity. These are things that they observe and see, and it's up to us to break these cycles. Not only women, it's men's job to constantly be telling their peers, their children, that they should move in a certain way, they should approach things in a certain way to be able to eliminate some of these continued cycles that they have grown into and have carried on for years. Now, how do we address toxic masculinities so that we get to a point where we're dealing with positive masculinities? First and foremost, we need to be okay with acknowledging where we are. The first step to getting any work done is really being self aware, understanding what the problem is so that you can figure out solutions. If you're constantly being deflective or dismissive of the issues or thinking, oh, it's not that serious, or he was just joking, or he probably didn't mean it that way, or that's just how it's always been, if you stop making those excuses and take a moment to have these conversations to come together, then you find that we're able to work towards solutions of making it better and getting to a point where we get to eliminate these problems and we're dealing with positive masculinities. You have to be willing to have tough conversations. You have to be willing to be called out for behavior that's not good. It's one of those things you find in groups and in different groups and circles with your friends or family. People are afraid to tell the harsh truths to your family that, oh, this is an example of like toxic masculinity. This is, you are continuing the cycle that we're trying to break. And they feel like they normalize bad behavior instead of calling it out and really being in a position to shun people who are not willing to learn or and and teach themselves these practices that they practice. You can tell them a lot of times and try and get them to learn different things, but don't make it so easy for them to just be existing in spaces when they still keep practicing the behavior. Because sometimes when there's no cause and effect or consequences for how people behave, they don't really feel the need to have to change. And it's really important that everyone does the work, does their part in changing and behaving certain ways. Make it known and okay that it's okay for men to be vulnerable. It's okay for men to seek help. It's not okay for men to make sexual advances to women without consent. It's all of these things that you constantly have to be reiterating and making sure that you don't stop until people are practicing it and are aware of everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Chido. Thank you so much. I'm blown away. Thank you for that amazing presentation and for making us aware that there are certain beliefs that we need to debunk when it comes to positive masculinities. We have to change the narrative. And we will like to open the discussion to the floor where if you have any questions on the presentation, this is your time to ask the presenter questions before we kind of give you also a sum up of what we see from what we gathered from the presentation Chido shared with us. So, do we have any questions for our presenter?
Well, I just want to put the conversation running. And we spoke with Chicho, Mauricio, when we were talking with the men about this. And one of the things that he told us is exactly something like that. Is when you start to talk about what is happening, and as Chiro says, to start to have those tough conversations, the people start to think that the men, they are feminists or they are no men enough. But I want to hear from Uncle Charles and see what we have to do to start to educate the men and be real men. Because that is what is men, because it's supposed to be that person who is gonna defend, or is that person of mostly because it's from your point of view, Charles, what it
Yes,
is.
I just want to appreciate my sister. I think she has done very wonderful. I never knew there was toxic masculinity, but right now I've got it very well, because actually sometimes that toxic is the one that piles with people, and when it is piled up, the reaction of this particular man becomes worse. So I really agree with her, and Maria, thank you for raising such a wonderful person. Men have unique way of looking at things. And at times when they are provoked, they react in a bad way. And what you have asked me, Monica, I think we are on it. It is an issue of sensitizing men, just bringing them up together. And maybe you don't do a lot of talking, but you provoke them by asking questions. What should be done in this? What should be done in this? And they react and they talk very well. Because when they are in a number of them, then each one of them is afraid. And if he's doing such like things, they are those ones who know them. So they will go back to them later and say, hey, Charles, you are talking about this and you are doing the same. So can you please change that characteristic if you want to be part of the men champions? So this is what we are looking at it, that men need to copy from other men in order for them to borrow the characters and behaviors of living with their spouses, with their daughters, with their mothers, so that they become part and parcel of what my sister called toxic. Then they now leave that toxic to become now people who can look at women as people who deserve respect, people who need to be cared for. I think we are on the way. Rome, somebody said Rome was not built in one day. It starts a place and it goes on. And I can say right now, quite a number of people are borrowing what we are doing. Because once we sensitized the leaders, so the leaders are the ones who calls for the meetings, and then we are invited to go and address them. So to me, this is a positive way of looking at it, and I think we shall reduce the vice, because quite a number of men are interested now. And I think as we become more, it will reduce. Thank you. I don't know whether I've answered your question, Maria.
Absolutely.
And
it's what we have been kind of the theme of this year. The more we start talking, the more we are going to be able to go to the goal.
Correct.
The more we are talking with the new generations, with the people that is out there seeing that their mother, mostly because we have to take care of the new generation and what the new generations are learning, and talk to them, because I think my generation was a generation that we don't talk about these things. It was kind of a taboo. But now we are in this generation and we have to continue to talk. I know that in some places that it's not possible to do it. But as far as we can, we have to continue to talk about it.
Yeah, I think so. And practically, actually, like this is picture I'm seeing on the screen, I'm seeing quite a number of champions now being interested in taking care of their children, sitting with them. But previously, that is a woman's business. So bonding with their children right now, it's part of it. And I meet some even going to the clinic and they are carrying the children. So this is one thing that I think we are trying to instill in people in a friendship manner. You know, sometimes also the way you approach other men, it all matters a lot. And I have also seen something interesting that at times just eating together with the men and sharing, I think it is also an attraction. which will bring them to understand that you care about them. And when somebody knows that you care about him, then you will become very relative and very close. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Uncle Charles. And while we see this, I would like to hear from Janice.
Yes. Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
how you doing? I would like to hear about this because I know that you have a lot of knowledge.
Okay. In terms of what do you mean? I didn't quite understand totally.
Because here is the thing, we have been
Okay.
talking about women, and sometimes
Yeah.
we talk how the gender based
Hmm.
abuses, all of this.
Okay.
Now we are talking with the men and
Okay.
to be a man. What is that masculinity? What is the kind of the description that you can tell us here about what is that? What is to be a man? What is to be a masculine man? No feminine man, but masculine man, because that is kind of the controversy for a man
Okay.
when they start to talk about how a woman has to be treated. That is
Hmm.
not just to be strong, but to be sensitive.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So I guess for me, in terms of masculinity, it encompasses a lot of different areas. You know, there's the softer part that men often kind of shun away from, but that's really a huge part. But I think it starts at home. A lot of it starts at home, at the way that we are, uh, working with our young men. I used to work in juvenile probation with some hardened young criminals, and and a lot of it was because they hadn't been around people that exercised compassion, men in particular, that they had to have this macho kind of attitude. And what I was doing is I was teaching them infant massage because they had young babies, and they really really had to do a lot of role play. So I think a lot of role play is used, especially with men, two young boys, because that's who they emulate. And when they have a negative role model, they kind of lean towards it. But they also saw a softer part in me too, expecting more from them. So it's a masculinity is it has a mixture of different things, but I think really, to me, the softer side, the caring side, the empathy side is the side that's kind of closed down a lot. But I think it's because of the culture. But I feel like we can change it, but we have to start at home. We have to start implementing it at home, wherever we go, in our families. It has to start there, from my opinion. That's just my opinion. I hope I answered your question. I might have went all the way around the road, but at any rate, it's a really, to me, it's a combination of things, masculinity, because I do look up to men that have a strength within themselves and kind of still have that soft side to them too. And a lot of times that's the side that we need to see, you know. So that's about kind of where I'm at on it, Monica.
What about education, like schools and stuff? Because here
Oh
in
yeah,
Canada, we are
yeah, education too. But a lot of times we kind of look for other people to do these things, and I think we have to remember that we have to integrate it in order for it to be more holistic. because they can get it at school, they can get it at church, they can get it at different places. And if we all give the same message, that we accept you the way you are, that you don't have to be hardcore, you don't have to be this way, you don't have, you know, I think, the same message has to come from all of us. That's kind of where I'm at.
Absolutely.
And this is a good arena to get it started, because I'm learning so much that I didn't even know, you know, especially around this masculinity piece. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Because my sons, I taught them not to hit women, not to be mean to women, you know, and also I had to teach them how they have to stand up to what they believe in too. So, but they mostly, I think men teach boys. Most of the young men that were in those facilities, they didn't have a male role model. They were kind of, and I'm not saying that women don't do a good job, but they didn't have a male role model.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope I answered your question. I might have went way around the road, but I hope I touched on something. Thanks, Monica.
Maria, back to you.
Maybe if I can add to what Monica,
Of course.
um, I think we are cultured a lot by the experiences we go through, and it molds us. But I like using Obama. I don't know. I can't say he's a perfect human being, but I believe it doesn't necessarily mean that the circumstances under which you are brought up should define or mold the person that you are. I think the environment, the circumstances should actually propel you to be a much better person. But unfortunately, men are wired differently than we are. So you find most of them are more closed up and they don't open up and discuss those issues. And now they ventilate it out in now being violent, exercising their dominance through some unorthodox ways. So my challenge to men, actually, my call to action for men actually is, let your circumstance, yes, you're not wired like us that will open up and talk and say that this is my problem, or one, two, three, four. But it does not negate that you have responsibility towards the opposite sex by respecting them, by valuing them, by um, treating them the way you'd actually want to be treated. So it's very important that despite the circumstances that you've gone through, despite whatever challenges you're facing, find your own language of dealing with it. But as well, let the challenges you've gone through, even the African setting is by and large defined by patriarchy. But for me, I normally say you're the one who sets a new footprint in your own family, because you're setting a legacy for yourself. You're setting a new generation for yourself. So it is incumbent upon you to come up with the positive way of looking at things and set a new whatever for your family, set a new footprint for your own family. It doesn't necessarily mean that what your father did or your grandfather did, you'll continue it, but it is for you to change and bring in something new and set the pace and define a new chapter for your family. Thanks.
Wow, I just love it when we go deeper. And thank you, Mamacita, for really diving in. And we want to hear from everyone. And because there were questions that I had in mind, that when we look at positive masculinity, basically what we are doing is we are sort of dismantling what is the regular status quo, what is normal. because I look at it as all this being social constructs. So it's what society has embedded on what a good man is, what it means to be a strong man. And we would love to sort of change that trajectory, change that narrative that men don't cry, because men have to be strong, meaning that men should always showcase a strength more than what is possibly humane. And this is where it starts. We have to be able to appreciate that the family plays a role. Because when our boys are born, the identity that they hold is what they are given at birth. Because we again say there's a girl, there's a boy. And then it is in the family that we start giving them roles. And so we want to go back again to the role that the family plays in molding these young boys who become future men. So it goes back again. I'm going to challenge the mothers. What is our response? How do we react? What are we teaching our boys? How are we socializing our boys? The communities. As a community, because a child grows in a community. They become who they become because of the community, the society they grow in. Because society then defines those social norms. So it's about what we are putting out there. And these young boys then respond to that stimuli, and that helps them shape the men they become. So we cannot allow the narrative that you and I grew up knowing to be what is normal. So it's no longer business as usual when it comes to masculinity. And I would like us to also understand that a man is not defined by his physicality. And it's okay for a man to cry, to show vulnerability, because you're human. You have emotions. So we cannot teach our boys that boys don't cry. I want us to change that mindset. Boys are human. They have emotions, and it's okay for the boys, for the boy child to show emotion. It's okay for a boy child to shed tears. It's not a sign of weakness. Because often than not, we present it to our boy children that when they cry, oh, boys don't cry. And I know most of us grew up hearing that boys don't cry. But are boys not human?
Yeah.
So why are we trying to create a superhuman being? Because it is from those social norms that we set up that we end up with, I'm going to borrow Basuda's term when she looks at climate and says it's a mess. So we are creating a mess by what we are normalizing, by what we dish out. We are setting expectations for these young men, young boys who become men. We are teaching them that they should not show emotion. We are glorifying machismo. That's being cool, being strong. You cannot be talked back at. We are teaching them that women are weak, young girls are weak. We are teaching them disrespect for self. others and women. So I want to challenge the mothers. I want to challenge the family. Let's do better. Let's change the status quo. And I'll insist again that we embed what we feel is normal. So it's socially constructed. And surely it can be changed. So I want us to really put thought to that. What kind of men are we building, or are we developing and building? What are we doing? What is our key role there? Do we carry on with this myth that men don't cry, men are strong, women are weak, and it's okay for young boys to talk down when they're talking to girls because it's cool to do that? Do we embed in our children when they are kids how they look at their sisters? Lest we forget, the boys become men. So are we doing a good job of raising young men that are solid, that are well-rounded and grounded, young boys that are human enough to allow themselves to love, to be loved at, and to respect and to be respected? Are we doing enough? Because we are the same people that cheer these traits and behaviors. We are the same people that make them become who they become. So I want us to take responsibility and accountability and ask ourselves, how am I contributing to the toxicity? What is my role? Do I cheer my son when he's done wrong? Do I cheer my son when he's being disrespectful? Do I teach my son and tell him that it's okay to look at women the way he does and to treat them like they are nothing? Because that's what a man should do. Is that what I'm teaching and embedding in my son? Because yes, as mothers, we are leaders in our own right of the community. We raise the children. So that's why I'm speaking to mothers right now. And as for fathers, we speak of mentorship. Are you changing the trajectory? The way you were socialized is not what should be a repeat. You were raised to believe that men don't cry, men are strong, men are these superhumans. As a man, are you standing in the gap? What role are you playing? What is your call to action? How are you changing yesterday's views for a better tomorrow so that we have young men that will be well-rounded and solid? Young men that appreciate that to err is human and to forgive is divine. Are we playing a role as men, making our boys be present, be accountable, be responsible? Where are the uncles? Are we doing our part? Are we being role models? Are we fostering positive behaviors in our families and within our boy children? Lest we forget, the boys become the future men of tomorrow. Are we still talking about what it should be? Or we are standing in the gap and standing upright and being positive role models and giving guidance, providing guidance to support the young man so that their lives can be transformed. Are we doing enough? As communities, are we creating safe spaces? Are we creating the brother circles? Because more often than not, we refer to the round table discussions as a woman thing. That's for girls. But the boys need that. Some challenging men in the communities. Can we start those round table discussions? Can we do more to save our boys? Can we raise awareness about positive masculinity, what it looks like? Be the change. You cannot always preach about being part of the change, but be the change. And for the young boys who are listening out there, what is it that you can do better? What is your call to action? What are you going to do better starting today? Starting now, what are you going to do better? We cannot go back to yesteryear. We cannot go back to those beliefs. And I'm reminding the young boys, the brothers, that it's okay to show emotion and it's okay to hurt and to acknowledge that you're hurting. You have to speak up and speak out. You have to learn to express yourself. You cannot bottle it in there no more. You are human. Allow yourself to feel. Because you too matter. Your mental health matters. But the responsibility lies on you. What is going to be your call to action? What is your call to action? If anything you'll take away, let it start now. Let it start with you. Create a circle, create a safe space, take charge. And by embracing positive masculinities, I can guarantee we can create more just and equitable world for all. But we have to continue to challenge harmful stereotypes and promote healthy and fulfilling lives for all men. That includes the boys. So are you ready to make that change? Let's do better. We want to thank you at this point that you've been able to join us for what we call a very difficult conversation. Understand that the role is not just for the responsibility is not just for the young man to change himself. Maybe it's time for all of us to change on how we see things. So I'm going to ask each and every one tuning in from around the globe and those present. I'll take the mic around the room. I would like you to share what your call to action is going to be regarding positive masculinity. What are you going to do? And again, actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
So I'll start with Sister Janice. What's going to be your call to action? What oath or pledge are you making today?
Okay. My pledge is to let it begin with me.
Let it
That's my
begin.
pledge. Let it begin with me. Because if I want them to change, I'm going to have to change too. Because it works both ways. One side can't get one way and the other one not do their part. So let it begin with me. That's my call to action.
Wow, I love that. It gives us a starting point. Let it begin with me. Let it begin with you. Take charge. And I'll move on to piggyback on that. Monica, what's your call to action?
Yeah, and I was here thinking that I'm gonna piggyback in Janet. One of the things that it's two ways of the coin that we have to work on. Because sometimes when we are talking masculinity and femininity, and we are talking our fight against gender-based violence and all of this, it's a factor of that we are enemies, women and men. And I don't have the statistics. I love the statistics. I love the facts. And I don't have them. But I believe that part of all new era of so many people that like women who like women, so men who like men, is because we lost what we are, what we were created for. The woman we have been arrived to the point that we hate the masculinity. So we kind of identified with us. And for that, the first thing is to know ourselves and to forgive not only the perpetrator, that even it was not with us, but with our mothers or with our classmates or whomever was the perpetrator, or whoever I was the victim or the perpetrator, to forgive and to start to working on that. Because if I don't forgive and I don't forget, I gonna embrace that in my kids and in the rest of the generations that come in there. And for the men to know more about what was the creation and to know that they were created to protect, not to attack. And understand what it is to protect is not to overcome the other person. It's to respect and love. And you know, guys, that I always talk about the love that God gives to us. It's a freedom love. It's a protecting love. And that is what we have to follow. So to answer Maria's question, I'm going to continue to talk about the love of God, about the forgiveness. And that is my taking.
Wow, I love that. It goes back to love for self and love for Christ. Well, whatever you believe in spiritually, what grounds you. So having to look at love, and I love the fact that you did mention the power of forgiveness there. Asking ourselves, it's literally like asking self to apologize to self. That I'm sorry to myself for not loving myself enough and accepting and appreciating who I am. And if you're a spiritual person, then you can tap it to whose you are, because that's where others seek guidance through that. And Miss Monica, you did touch on something again, how we define masculinity. And for those of us that are experts in women and gender studies or feminism, etc., there's been conversations around those discussions when it comes to man, that feminism, whether it's, we know it's a myth or maybe not, something that we're working on, has constantly bashed masculinity. And then if we have to take it to another level, it gets very intricate, because what we choose, we get the alpha ego presenting the masculinity in females, whether we see this through leadership. Why do we believe we should showcase the masculine side as the strong side? So that's a conversation that we can have in 2025 when we actually unravel and unpack masculinity, so that we, not only as activists, as feminists, as leaders, can get a full understanding. And what is it that we can do better as feminists to rebuttal or to change the narrative of what man bashing is? Because that's how we have socialized, believe it or not. We have socialized our young girls who become women. They also, in their own right, become women leaders, because we identify that it's not okay to show the feminine side when you're in leadership. So we turn to show the male side of us, the alpha ego. And that's the masculine part of us, that you have to show that you're strong, you're stoic, you're dominant or domineering, because it's attached with all those traits and characteristics which society has defined that this is how a strong man is seen. And Monica is saying, and I'm going to piggyback on both, where Sister Janice says it starts with me, it starts with you, to change the narrative about masculinity. If you're a leader, how can you do better with your team? Have you been a loving leader, a compassionate leader? It starts with you. But if you have love for self, then you're going to embrace the change. You have to forgive yourself and allow yourself, or give yourself permission to learn and relearn. And we're going to keep moving. So, Banja, what is your call to action when it comes to masculinity?
Thanks, Maria. My call to action is based on a legal principle called nemo dat quod non habet. Basically, it says, it's Latin for you cannot give what you don't have. So, so it's the same thing. There are things you cannot do to yourself. So why would you want to do it to somebody else? You would not want wickedness to be done to you. You would not want violence to be meted out on you. You would not want somebody to be heinous towards you. So give out what you can, even you would want to consume. Give out what you can consume. Give out, I'll repeat it again. Give out what you can consume. If you would not want evil, if you do not want violence, don't give out violence. Because tomorrow it is your mom, it's your sister, it is your friend, it is your, and all these things stem from relationships. There are things you cannot do to your friend. There are things you cannot do to your sister. There are things you cannot do to, there are things you would not even want somebody to do to you. So always be conscious about what you're meting out.
You can give us that again, Banja. You say, just, I think it's so profound. It's worth taking down. If you can repeat that again in
You
terms
do
of
not,
giving.
you cannot give out what you would not want to, you cannot give what you don't have. So it's the same principle. You do not give out what you would not want somebody to do to you. All of us, we are human beings, we are relational. So even if you try to understand the psychology of a rapist, because that's I think the most weird thing I've tried to understand is those people are just mentally sick, because you cannot go and rape somebody who's below 18 years old. You cannot go and rape your grandmother. You cannot go and rape your sister or your mom. Because even you as a man, you would be violent if somebody did that to somebody. So why would you want to go and rape somebody's daughter? It shows there's something seriously wrong, right? Why would you want to be violent towards somebody's daughter? Because it's daughters who are being done that to. Yeah, somebody's sister, somebody's wife, somebody's friend. So my call to action is give out what you would want to consume. Don't do things that if tomorrow you are served the same plate, you don't want to run away.
Like that. I like that. Give out what you cannot give out what you do not have. And
Yes.
we need to take a moment on that. Really take it in. And we're gonna move on with the mic to Aveen. Aveen, unmute yourself. Before I get to ask you what your call to action, go ahead and share.
Yeah, so Maria, I had this point of view, like we already discussed, that masculinity or femininity, feminism, nothing is bad. The problem comes in when the protector is actually the person who's overpowering it and taking advantage of it. The nature has built us in a way that both of like in India we believe in a mythology that when the female energy and when the male energy come together, then when they become one, that is the completeness, like that is the end of everything. But here what happens is that either male is overpowering or female is coming up with a concept of pseudo feminism, which here we are taking as masculinity. So if the male is not wearing the pants, the female has to come up to take the charge. So that is the problem where the actual issue arises. We have forgotten to embrace what the nature has actually given to us. And reason and because of that, we are trying to shift towards the other gender. And that is where the disbalance starts. And that is why it is important for a male to respect the female. So when, like we just discussed, when he is the protector, if the male is given that strength, the physical strength to protect a woman, when he starts abusing that power and he starts taking advantage of it, that is the problem where it arises. So there is no problem if we see it just as masculinity and feminism. The abuse of that power is a problem. And for this, like you asked for the call of action, is first to embrace what you have. We have to stop feeling that we are weak. We have been blessed with the greatest gift to born kids, to have to give another life that is being given to no other. Every species, only the women has been given this right. Like the female gender has been given this right in any species, because God knew that they were so strong that they could take it up. So the first thing to accept that, okay, fine, somebody else is going to take care. And then, so the surrender as well as protecting yourself comes together with it. So this is like, I wanted to interrupt this conversation and I wanted to give a very distinct side or a distinct view to the same conversation, actually. So thank you, Maria.
That was really, really powerful. And honestly, looking at it, from that context that you have been given the power, but there's a tendency to abuse the power that you've been gifted and blessed. And the lack of understanding the strength of the female gender. I love that, because you've taken us to understand not only are we looking at creation, but the role of the female in this. She's the nurturer, the caregiver. Yet, the one that is given custodianship of having to play the role, to protect, to look after, then we go on to abuse that power. And that's where we start having the toxic behavior. We start having the violence to the very same person who brought life. If anything, I want us to think about this. And thank you, Avin, for centering us, for bringing us back to creation. Because I want us to understand how all this is marrying what we are saying right now. It starts with you, the love for self. We're speaking of embracing self, loving self, taking charge, the roles that have been bestowed. It's our responsibility. Linda reminded that you cannot give out what you do not have. Us to think a little about that. And Avin walked us through to remind us that look at the power of those two energies when men and women come together. We're still moving on with that conversation, our call to action. Uncle Charles, what is your call to action? Being a leader, a community leader in your own right.
Yeah, before I
What's
comment
your
my
call to action?
yes, this Sammy to comment before I comment mine.
Okay, Sammy Airo. What I can comment, first of all, there's a saying that charity starts at home. Me, personally, as a man, I have to start from my house. Because if it is on the side of the violence, I should not show disrespect to my wife or to my family, so that now, if I'm to go to, maybe there is a violence on my neighbor or in the society, I have to go and help them when I know that I can handle it in my house. Now, being a leader, because in most cases, the action I'm taking is this. If at all there's such a kind of problem in the society, first of all, I have to be respected. I have to respect myself so that I can be respected by others. And you find that sometimes, for example, you can find maybe a neighbor or somebody in the community is not doing the right thing that is wanted to be in the society. And how can I cancel him when the same things, or rather the bad behavior, I'm doing it in my house, or rather in my family? Then it becomes very difficult. So the best thing, the action I'll take is good. It's good that I have to be an example. before I go to a neighbor, before I go to the community, I have to show that I'm a respected man. I have respect to others. I have good behavior, because you cannot tell somebody to change his the role model when you yourself you are doing a bad model. Thank you.
I love that because it really you spoke about you being a role model, and again to further hone in on what Sister Janice said, it begins with me. It begins with you. It begins with all of us as individuals. And almost marrying again what Banja said. You cannot give out what you do not have. It's like, again, I love where we're going with this, because I'll take you through an analogy where you have to look at plucking out that log out of one's eye before you can take out what's in yours. It's like seeing fault in another person before acknowledging that you are also infallible. You're human. You make mistakes. And many a time we find ourselves where we constantly, maybe as parents, we don't check on ourselves. We are quick to administer discipline, or we are quick to call out our children. But sometimes we forget that it's our responsibility to be role models. So I love where you went with that as a leader, you have to be a true and authentic role model before you can ask of your team. You have to play the role and showcase those good leadership qualities before you can set the expectations for your team. It's almost like I want us to sit with Ubuntu for a second. Because Ubuntu, this is where, as Africans, that's where we take it from. The oneness, who we are as a people. It's derived from Ubuntu. Because we believe not only in humanity to others, but I am what I am because of who we all are, or as we commonly say, I am because we are. So I want us to sit with Ubuntu for a second. Challenge yourself. Who are you? Who are you? Are you accountable for your actions, the ripple effect they will have, not only on you or those around you, the community at large, and humanity? What's your role? So we keep moving on. What's your call to action, Carolyn? Thank you for joining us, Carolyn. How are you this morning? And if you want to share, what is your call to action as you were listening in? I want to hear where you are with this when it comes to positive masculinities. What's your call to action?
Yes. I really related a lot with what Monica said about the forgiveness piece, because when I walk around, I only see men as perpetrators, it makes me not want to partner with them. And then it affects me in my own home. So taking it on myself to work on my belief system, that's something I really want to work on from this, and to let go of that disdain for men and that desire to want to partner with women, but not with men also. So I think that's something that starts within my own heart, within my own self. that y'all have really challenged me to work on my beliefs. Thank you.
I love that. I love it when we challenge each other, because that's how we empower each other, and that's how we elevate and are ready to go out into the world, into the community, to transform lives. It begins with me. It begins with you.
Yes.
So as you have that self-talk, it begins with you.
Yes.
You challenge the belief systems, like what Carolyn said.
Yes, thank you, Maria.
Well, no, we thank you. We thank you for sharing, because in this, you've also challenged us to take a closer look at selves. And I see Violet Ombaka is joining.
Maria, I think Uncle Charles was not able to
because there
tell
was
his
Uncle
part.
Samuel. Okay. I'll go back to Uncle Charles. Uncle Charles, whilst we're also waiting for Violet to join us in the conversation, Uncle Charles, what is your call to action? And it's kind of double-barreled for you, because you're a community leader. And you also are a leader in your own home and a leader of an organization. So you wear so many hats, and I have to say you wear them very gracefully. So what is your call to action?
My call to action is us going back to our original way of understanding issues. In Kakamega, if you don't greet somebody, it means you have no peace with that person. Now, families have forgotten how they came up together, because the first thing is they greeted each other when they wanted to get courting or when they started their relationship. These days, they rarely greet each other in the morning, neither in the evening. So the man buys the oil and the lady makes the hands very soft, but he doesn't greet the hands. So this is a challenge that I feel we need to start from the background of training, skillful parenting, so that people can understand their responsibilities at the family level, because it seems like they are forgotten. If the children see you greeting each other, they will look at it as an impressive way of doing things. And so they'll copy it also to start greeting their spouses. But when we don't greet each other, then we mean we have left our responsibility of love. But if we love each other and we greet each other, I remember even Maria, when we started chatting, we greeted each other. But this norm now is getting lost. So once you greet each other, you can now share several things. So I look at it, my take is parents, all of them need to be trained to understand they have roles and responsibilities within the families. Once our roles and responsibilities are good at the family level, then the community also will respect us. But when you go outside, you find your wife is gossiping you, then people will lose value in you. So in my take is, we need to go back to the ground and assist parents to know that greetings, they are of great importance. Because if you don't greet me surely, how do you start talking to me? And all of us who are in relationship, that was the first thing. How are you? Fine. I'm good. I'll wish that we become friends. You see, and in Kakamega, you are doing that while holding the hand. So that hand now has become a foreign in the house. You greet other people very nicely outside. In the house, no greetings. This is something that we need to start ministering to families so that they understand. You can find even, there's a time I was talking to some pastors and I just asked a simple question. Who among us greeted the wife in the hand when they were leaving? I can tell you there was only one hand. So even for us, we need to train ourselves so that we set steps of community building from our household. I have Caro here also to say something, but this is my take. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Uncle Charles. Thank you. And you said you've got Karoy to share. Okay, we'll go and then we'll be able to wrap up. Go ahead.
We are here. We are hope to bring hopes to the community. And we should forget about the yesteryears and forget about the culture and traditions, because they are the things that are killing destiny in our children. So we should get rid of yester and traditions. Once we focus and reset our minds on our goals and targets, we shall break that cycle. And we are here to start to break that cycle after the 16th day of the activism. Thank you, Sister Maria.
Oh, wow. I love that. You're ready. She's like, ready, start, go. That's what Carol is saying, that we have to break from what those harmful norms. Because I would like to say, in my own take, when it comes to culture and tradition, I always say it defines who we are. It's part of our social fabric. And I want to appreciate the good that's also in culture and tradition. But we have to now challenge the harmful norms, and be ready to change not the mindset, how we see things. I like what Uncle Charles also said. It goes to what Sister Jenny said earlier. It begins with us. It begins with the home. It begins with you. It begins with Monica. It begins with Caroline, Aveen. It begins with you, with Banja, the individual. It's got to start with you. It begins, and it has to start with you. And I as much as others may not have followed or understood what Uncle Charles was saying, and I would like again to go back to those fundamental basics, because it doesn't matter which culture you're from. We know we were socialized to start our day by asking how one is. And as Africans, we tend to, when we see each other, we acknowledge, we ask of each other. Like when I meet with Monica, the first thing I'm supposed to say is, okay, hello. Those are the pleasantries. But I then go on to ask Monica, and I'm trying to translate from my vernacular language into English. So it's asking Monica, how are you? So Monica, when she answers back, it may sound like she's describing, but she will then acknowledge that she is fine. And how are you? And again, as a Zimbabwean, we start by good morning. We'll ask again in the afternoon. We'll ask again when it's 5 o'clock and just at night. We have those different greetings, but there is something that is relational about that. Because when you talk of Ubuntu, you are saying, I am because we are. You think of humanity. But how can you say, I am because we are, when you are failing to be a sister to Monica? And it starts with the basic hello and how are you? And Monica acknowledging the greeting to say, I am fine. And how are you? It's what Carolyn said earlier. We have two Carolyns here. Carolyn said we have to challenge our beliefs. And Carolyn from Kakamega said, well, it's time to forget about those traditions. It's time to do them away with. And I'm saying, no, there is good in some of that holds us together as a unit. The social fabric, culture, and tradition define who I am, the African woman that I am. However, we also have to appreciate that culture is evolving, it's dynamic, it's ever changing. But going back to everything that has been, it starts with us. You're going to have to love yourself, to embrace yourself, who you are and whose you are. But you have to have the power to forgive, have the power to learn and relearn so that you can be empowered. And when you're empowered, you're able to elevate, to take yourself to another level. And Avin reminded us that you have to remember the roles you play. You are the custodian, you are the protector, but do not abuse the power. And the power and responsibility that was given to the female gender is not to be undervalued. She brings life. The female gender is the one that was bestowed to have that power. She gives life. And when she does that, you have to remember her worth, be respectful. It's not to say you don't respect yourself or don't respect males. And then Caroline from Texas said, we have to challenge ourselves. Now I'm speaking in the collective. She will challenge her own beliefs, but challenge ourselves enough to be able to empower others so that we can foster the relationships, positive outcomes, so that we can work together towards a common goal. Uncle Charles says it starts with the hello, the good morning. That's acknowledging. If you do not talk to me in his words, surely you cannot expect there'll be a relationship. And then our leader Samuel said, to be a good leader, you have to lead and be a role model. And Banja reminded us that you cannot give out what you do not have. And funny enough, I have a cup. I don't know if you can all read it. And it's almost answering what Banja said. You get what you give. And that's a cup I have in my home. I have this cup because it reminds me that you get what you give. So we are here today discussing a very difficult topic, but one that's going to steer the course to bringing us to a positive change. It starts with us. This has been such a great conversation. So much that we learned. And I want to thank Mama Sita for bringing it to that notch. This is what team players do. She brought it to the level and it just blew. And we all can attest that we learned so much. And we are on this platform, we are huge on that. We want you to come and learn something, live with something that you'll take to go and empower others. Because you keep hearing us. We keep emphasizing and reiterating the calls to action. So that next time when we meet in the next quarter, we're going to try to have quarterly meetings next year so that you share with us where you're at with your call to action. So tomorrow will be day 14, and we are there. We are almost getting there. I want to commend each and every one of you that has been signing in, tuning in every single day for the past 13 days. And I want to say we are almost getting to the final stretch. And the conversations have been informative, so much learning. And I hope and trust that we are out there to transform communities, to have an impact. And remember, at Hope for Her Global, we believe that you are hope. And you bring hope to one woman, one girl, one boy, one man, one community at a time. So you go out there and be the light. Light up the community. It is that time of giving, new beginnings, when we start celebrating the birth of Christ for those that are believers. So what is your call to action? What are you going to do for your community this holiday season? And we as Hope for Her Global, we are thankful for each and every one of you. And we want to say, have yourselves a wonderful weekend. And let's do this again tomorrow and the day after. And then Tuesday, we're going to call it a wrap. And I know, Mamacita, I want to say, Linda, Mamacita, you ladies, and Uncle Charles, and all of you, Sister Janice, Aveen, you have been awesome. And I want to take this moment to pay homage to each and every one of you. Thank you for what you're doing and for what you have given on this platform this far. Let's keep making noise for a great cause. So it is then, hasta mañana, mañana. But mucho gracias. Merci beaucoup. Asante sana. Maita henyu tatenda siabonga zikomo. Well, Danki, we'll see you tomorrow. Till then.